And with that being said, we're going to transition to our news of the week, so to say, and really just spend some time focusing on the Emmy nominations that dropped last week. Of course, the Emmys is the biggest show for television for awards and recognition. And we were certainly expecting many of the big shows from the past year to be acknowledged and recognized, especially because things are so competitive as recently as they have been. And so we finally got a chance to just take a look at what the field's going to look like for the Emmys whenever it does eventually come on, which we'll get to about the writer strike and the actor strike as it relates to that. But in terms of the nominations itself, I think to nobody's surprise, Succession from HBO walked away with the most amount of nominations, stacking up 27 nominations. And when you look at the rest of the field, HBO dominated the other top spots. The Last of Us, which we reviewed every week on this podcast, pulled in 24 nominations. And then The White Lotus, last year, a limited series, now competing for the drama categories, pulled in 23 nominations. And then you just go down the list. Ted Lasso from Apple TV pulled in 21 nominations. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which just wrapped up its final season, pulled in 14. The Bear on FX, which is being nominated primarily for the season 1 that debuted last year because that came right after last year's deadline, pulled in 13 nominations. And then rounding out our most nominated list is Beef, which we reviewed on the podcast, which premiered earlier this year on Netflix, pulled in 13 nominations. And there's also some other notable things that I just want to call out in terms of Black actors, Black actresses who were nominated. Quinta Brunson once again received nomination for leading actress in a comedy series. Also, Tyler James Williams got acknowledged once again for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. Dominique Fishback pulled in a leading actress nomination for her work in Swarm. So it's really, really incredible to see that. Also from Abbott Elementary, Cheryl Lee Ralph and Janelle James also picked up nominations for supporting actresses in their work with Abbott Elementary. And also Jessica Williams was nominated for her role in Shrinking. I checked out about half of Shrinking. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I'm glad to see she also got nominated as well. And then lastly, but certainly not least, Niecy Nash Betts was nominated for her work in last year's Dahmer, which debuted on Netflix. She received a supporting actress nomination in limited series or an anthology movie. So definitely some key highlights as it relates to Black actors and actresses. I'd say not enough across the board, especially when you look at some of those lead categories in drama, but overall still want to pay acknowledgement to them. But before we talk about some of these specifics with the shows that were acknowledged and just like how the field looks across some of the big categories, man, how do you feel about this year's Emmy nominations? Anything stand out to you? Any surprises or just overall, what are your big key takeaways from what you see so far?
Man, no surprises to me at all. This is all shows we've talked about because we actually like them, kind of sort of deal. And man, to me, they nailed it right on the head. I think everything makes sense. These are some bangers, though. I know that. I read the best drama series and was like, wow, I don't know what's going on here, but these are bangers. And so I really can't wait to see how the Emmy shakes down because I think it's going to be very interesting overall with everything, not only everything going on, but these are some really, really good nominees again across the board, man. Of course, at the end of the day, I'm rooting for everybody Black, no matter how much I love all of these other people on here who are killing it or again may deserve it. What I am a little bit surprised about is the amount of nominees The Last of Us got. I remember all of us tuning in and loving The Last of Us, but for it to be right under Succession, that's the little bit of surprise that got me a little bit, and also a little bit. I think Ted Lasso, the way you kind of talked about it, it does feel like dang, 21. After that's what I said when I read it. I was like, after what Jordan said, y'all gave it 21 nominations. So I was a little surprised there too. But again, everything's lining up for me. What I'm really proud of, I think the most is the Bear nominations. Maybe that is the surprise, just because again, something about the Bear doesn't feel like Succession. It doesn't feel like last. I don't open Twitter and people are talking about the Bear like they're talking about House of Dragon. You know what I mean? It's just not one of those shows per se. And so I am pretty proud to see the Bear with those 13 nominations, man. It makes me happy inside because I really, really like this season of the Bear. Of course, I like the first one too. I really like both of them as a unit. And so to see it get recognition makes my heart happy, man. But to be honest, when it comes down to these nominations, everything is anybody's game. I think everything makes sense. You go to Best Actor in a Drama Series. Sarah Snook in Succession is crazy. Bella Ramsey was doing a good job. I haven't seen The Diplomat, but I'm sure Kerry Russell was going insane. And it's just, it looks good. I do know Melanie Glinsky is really good in Yellow Jackets. You know what I mean? So those look good. Comedy series, there's just no telling. Barry is Barry. Abbott Elementary is Abbott Elementary. I I dropped the ball on Marvel's Mrs. Maisel. I'll get back to the podcast on that one, but I'm sure it's great. You know what I mean? And what I will say is a lot of these shows are exiting. Ted Lasso's exiting. Marvel's Mrs. Maisel is exiting. Succession is exiting. And usually sometimes we can predict and see, oh, something is exiting. Maybe it'll get its flowers. But when multiple shows are going out like this, it's kind of like, uh-oh, what's going to get it? You know, who's actually going to come out on top? So I can't wait to see how a lot of that stuff shakes out, man. But again, overall, I'm pretty proud and pretty spot on with everything they have here in these nominations.
Yeah, a couple of key things I'll point out. Largely, I would say I'm unsurprised, but there are a few things that I look at and my eyebrow raises and I start to question, like, well, wait a second, how do we get here? By far, Succession, I think, is the clear indicator in terms of what's going to just like clean up across the board. Like I'd be willing to put money on it that Succession is going to win most of the categories that it's nominated for. And there are a lot of categories in which multiple people are nominated. They have three actors up for lead actor in the category, which I don't think that's ever happened before. You have Brian Cox, you also have Kieran Culkin, and you have who plays Kendall. His name escapes me right now, but you have all three of these people in contention for lead actor, which is just like a murderer's row. It's kind of crazy to think about that, but I think Kieran Culkin is like the favorite, just considering like his performance and how much of a towering performance and how much he had to carry on his shoulders emotionally in that season. Brian Cox, I mean, you know, if you haven't watched Succession, I'll just say that he's not in the season as long as previous seasons. And so, you know, I think in terms of the amount of work that had to be done, you know, in any other season, I would say he probably would be the clear winner, but I think Kieran Culkin is, you know, going to walk away with it. But, you know, Succession, I think, again, is like the clear example of like what we expected to come in and be the clear sort of victorious winner of having the most nominations, but also probably taking away the most stuff as well. I'm also a little surprised at The Last of Us 2, but, you know, at the same time, HBO, anytime they have a new buzzy show, a drama at that, it's definitely sort of going to be something that I think people talk about, especially considering the production value behind it and just like
that's true,
the amount of conversation that was happening. But overall, when I look at this list and I see other shows that were nominated like Andor or House of the Dragon or The Last of Us, even, it just clearly indicates to me that we're starting to get slowly, not completely, but slowly get away from the genre bias that I think has existed within these larger awards bodies, because Andor, a science fiction show, the Last of Us, very much a post-apocalyptic, you know, sort of thriller. And then even House of the Dragon is leaning heavily into fantasy. You know, all of this stuff is very much like fandom, nerdy, you know, genre type of stuff. And so I love that we're starting to like pay acknowledgement to those types of shows. I will say a couple of things because I want to go through a couple of these categories and kind of talk about them in depth.
Let's do it.
Let's actually start with the bottom of the list, the best limited or anthology series, which again, this is, you know, to sort of acknowledge series that have limited runs. They don't go on a season-to-season basis. But we have Beef from Netflix, Dahmer, also from Netflix, Daisy Jones and the Six from Prime Video, Fleischman is in Trouble from FX, and Obi-Wan Kenobi from Disney Plus. How in the hell did Obi-Wan Kenobi, one
of these shows,
make like it into this list? What the fuck? Did I miss something? Like, we reviewed Obi-Wan Kenobi in depth last year when it aired, and that was not a good show, y'all. That was just not a good show. It had its moments. There were a few key episodes that were cool, and we got some cool stuff. I mean, who doesn't want to see Darth Vader, you know, suit up again and just like wreak all sorts of havoc? But overall, that just wasn't a great show. And so I'm really shocked to see Obi-Wan Kenobi in here. I do want to say Fleischman is in Trouble. I just watched that. Really excellent show. I think has a good chance of like possibly picking up the win here. But then Beef, you know, is a key watermark of something that we talked about that we absolutely enjoy. It was one of the surprise releases of this year. But any thoughts on limited or anthology series? You know, what are your takeaways from this category?
No, I agree, man. This was the one that you brought it up. I do remember looking and be like, Obi-Wan Kenobi is on this list, period. I was like, how did it make it here? And then my only thing I could think of, like, did they run out of limited series or something or anthology? I don't know what happened. Like, even because anthology, you could even thrown, I know it's not perfect and not that great, but like Cabinet of Curiosities, I don't know. I just feel like something else could have gone here that wasn't Obi-Wan. Kenobi, and it's not that I don't want to sound like a hater, right? But I'd rather put something in that spot that feels like it deserves it more. That feel like it put. I also don't want to like stroke Disney's ego. I don't want to stick Star Wars ego and make them think like they did a great job because now you open Disney Plus and they can say Emmy nominated Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everyone's gonna be like, oh, I gotta click on this. I don't like that expectation, and so that does feel a little weird there, man. But man, Beef Fire. Dahmer, really good. I know we talked about the nature of the way these true crime things exist, as did Black Mirror. Just talk about that whole thing in an episode, but it was good. It was. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Dahmer picks up the win here either. I have to check out Flashman is in Trouble, and I have heard good things about Daisy Jones in the Six. I just haven't watched it yet, so I think we'll have to see. But beef to me, beef Dahmer from what I've seen. I think they all are in contention. If Fleischman is, to me, that might be top three if you're saying it's as good as it is. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, let's talk about best comedy series, which is like the second biggest award of the night, sort of compared to like best drama series. But you have Abbott Elementary, Barry, The Bear, Jury Duty, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso, and Wednesday. So again, speaking to like the genre piece of it, Wednesday coming in here, that's like well-known brand IP. That was a bit of a surprise, but I'm kind of glad to see it here. I haven't watched Wednesday still. I know you checked it out and reviewed it on the show, but I'm actually glad to see it here. It was also hugely popular on Netflix. It's like one of the most viewed shows that they've ever had. Of course, Abbott Elementary is going to be here. Barry, just phenomenal work across the board. I think a great fourth season. I know it was somewhat divisive. And then others, also here. Jury Duty. I'm hearing a lot about. I'm hearing that that's actually a really good show, so I do want to check that out. But overall, I would typically say that, like, in this year, because Ted Lasso did just end, I would say it would probably walk away with the victory. I actually think The Bear is going to win. I think The Bear is the show that everybody is talking about, especially because season 2 just debuted. So the timing is, it couldn't be more perfect. Now, the Emmys might not air in September. They might air in fucking January for all we know. So people probably won't be talking about The Bear at that point. But let's just hypothetically say it were to air in September and things would proceed accordingly. I think just like all of the momentum that they have because season 2 is out, people are talking about it, watching it, discovering it, going back to watch season 1. And just for how explosive that first season was, I think The Bear's going to come from behind, whereas, maybe without The Bear here, I would say like, Ted Lasso probably really has it, or even Abbott Elementary, which was like the big darling from last year, who also still has a great shot at picking this up. But I think The Bear is probably my favorite out of this entire category.
No, I think I'm with you, man. Just again, how that show was shaken down, and it is crazy how close The Bear just came out, and it did end up in these nominations. It is kind of it's insane, almost like, oh shoot, didn't we just watch that like a couple weeks ago? Sorry to be nominated for an
Emmy. Know what they're doing with the timing for sure.
They did know what they were doing with the timing, but it does feel right to me. It does feel like, in some ways, it feels like both the underdog and the person that should win at the same time, and it's really cool for that. And yeah, I think that's right. Wednesday, to be honest, is a little bit of surprise here for me, because I like the show, don't get me wrong, but it's not like I'm watching Wednesday rolling, like laughing every episode, because there is way more to the show. It isn't just, of course, the fact that it's being considered as technically a comedy series is a little weird to me in general, I think. But yeah, it is a little surprising to see it there, but who knows? Again, I haven't seen the last season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. For all I know, knowing how much I love that show, it could blow my socks off after I watch it, and it could, you know what I'm saying? And it could end up doing something, but I'm with you right now, bro. I'm gonna have to go The Bear.
For sure. I want to quickly talk about best supporting actor in a drama series, because I saw this and I think some questions have to be asked. And so in this category, you have F. Murray Abraham from The White Lotus, Nicholas Braun from Succession, Michael Imperioli, also from The White Lotus, Theo James, also from The White Lotus, Matthew McFadden from Succession, Alan Ruck from Succession, Will Sharp from The White Lotus, and Alexander Skarsgård from Succession. So there are 8 nominees here.
2 shows. Represented
only by 2 shows. Did the fucking Television Academy not watch anything else? Like, what the fuck? This is crazy. I think that this is an absolute abomination of how nominations should go. Mind you, let's throw this out here. All of these performances are great. I'm sure all of them are deserving, especially on
Mm-hmm.
the Succession front. I like everybody here that's included in this category, and I like everybody here that's included from the White Lotus. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed both of those shows, and I thought the White Lotus season 2 was a
Yeah.
huge improvement over season 1. That doesn't take away the fact that we now have a category represented literally by only 2 shows, but there are 8 slots available. And this is a problem across the board. Like, why is that the case? You mean to tell me that nobody else, not one of these slots, could have been for another show to highlight another actor? Like, this is kind of crazy, especially considering that now that I'm looking at it, most, if not all of these actors are white men. Like, let's just keep that real and be honest about that. And that's not to say that, again, none of them are deserving, but damn, like, I just don't understand like how we can only acknowledge 2 shows in an entire category, you know. And I think other categories a little bit more diverse, like even best supporting actress in a drama series. You have Succession there, you have The White Lotus there, but you also have The Crown there. You have Better Call Saul there from Ray Seahorn,
Mm-hmm.
who was phenomenal in Better Call Saul. I think that she should win. She would be my personal favorite. So you do see a little bit more category diversity there, but for this one to just have 2 shows acknowledged, it's kind of crazy to me. It felt a little lazy on the part of the Television Academy, if I'm being honest.
Oh, absolutely. Like, is Matt Smith a person? Is he alive?
Which, by the
House of
way, House of the Dragon not getting any acknowledgement in any acting categories is a story for sure. Like, it picked up 8 nominations, but no actors. Not Matt Smith, not Reese Fonds, not even Emma Darcy in the Best
Emma
Supporting
Darcy,
Female
Millie
category.
Alcock, I
Yeah,
mean Olivia
nobody.
Cook. Cause
I got a theory
what?
about that. Yeah, I got a theory I'll get to after you make your point about
I'm
that.
sure. Actually, I might know where you're going with it. But that is nuts though. Like, how did, even in the nature of the White Lotus season 2, me liking all of those supporting, the whole supporting, cast that was nominated. I There's just no way. There's just no way that they decided that this was it. This was, we're good, White Lotus. It's almost like, it feels lazy to me. It feels like they didn't want to do the work to put somebody else in this category for some. I don't know, man. I really can't figure out why they decided to do this. But again, in all of these other great shows that do have other good supporting actors, it just doesn't make any sense to me why they, like, to be honest, like, even in White Lotus, looking at, yes, they had some good performances. Michael Imperioli was kind of barely in it. You know what I'm like? He was in it. Don't get me
That's
wrong,
true.
but
He wasn't
it's not
in
like
it
they
that
was
much.
out here getting monologues in the middle of episode. You know what I'm saying? Like, they weren't in it like that. It really wasn't their story, that was being told either. And of course it's supporting. It's not supposed to be, but they weren't in it that much, so it's really interesting that they didn't decide to choose some other people. I really don't understand. I have no idea what to say.
Yeah, it just, I looked at it at first and I was like, oh yeah, I like that person. I like that person a lot. I like that person a lot. But then when I like pulled back and I just saw that it was literally just 2 shows, I was like, wait, what? Like, how do we get here? But to go back to the House of the Dragon point, again, 8 nominations across the board, most of them technical though, no acting nominations for House of the Dragon. I actually have 2 theories as it relates to why it pretty much got shut out in the front, because there's no denying it was one of the most popular shows of 2022. Like,
Mm-hmm.
mad people watched that show, and it was one of the most talked about things, just considering the fact that that brand recognition from Game of Thrones is there and it's a prequel. But that is one reason why I think exactly it's not getting as nominated as frequently as some of these other shows, because I think Game of Thrones suck up so much of the oxygen in the room as it relates to the Emmys. Like, that was the show from that universe that was always going to receive the praise and the adoration from the Television Academy because of how different it was, how original it was for the medium of television, for just how shocking and game changing and culturally relevant it really became across everybody. I'm noticing that series that are prequels don't get that same love, because I feel the same exact way about Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad was the watershed moment that got all of the acknowledgement, all of the awards. Better Call Saul is an incredible and phenomenal show, and to some people, it might exceed even that of Breaking Bad, which is not a crazy thing to say, but by and large, it hasn't received a ton of awards from the Television Academy. I think because of the fact that it is a prequel, it's building off of something that already came before it. The second thing that I'll say about House of the Dragon, I think The Last of Us stole all of its thunder. I think anything that
One
House of the
HBO show,
Dragon,
huh?
yeah,
Or, well,
yep,
not one,
exact.
but
But the one genre show,
right.
Succession is
Mm-hmm.
like the one traditional drama, that's
Drama.
going to be at the front of the pack. But when we talk
Yeah.
about genre, and both of those shows, House of the Dragon and The Last of Us are genre shows, I think The Last of Us stole all of its thunder. Everything that House of the Dragon was going to get, Last of Us came out right after it and was like, well, we're something brand new. We haven't been done before in the television medium. Of course, we're adapting from the video game, as everybody knows at this point, but it's still new for most viewers. They probably haven't played the video game, so I think it came through and stole all of its thunder. Do you think that those, sort of ideas have any credence, or, would you sort of push back at just like why House of the Dragon didn't get as much acknowledgement as we might have expected coming into this award season?
No, I think a lot of that makes sense. And I think another thing, just to add to it, that makes sense is how long ago that show did come out. We were just talking about timing with the bear. We talked about House of the Dragon a long
almost a year ago.
A minute.
Yeah.
It's been a minute. So I can imagine it is hard to, in your mind, be like, dang, Matt Smith did play Daemon Targaryen, because it just hasn't been in the talks. It hasn't been the top of conversation here recently. So I think that's part of it too. But I really like that theory, man. It did. Game of Thrones was running shit for a long time, rightfully so. That's one of my favorite shows ever. So I'm gonna say that. But also, it does just feel like maybe they do feel like time to give somebody else a chance, kind of type thing. But again, at that same time, I don't know. Again, I'm just playing the White Lotus back in my head, and they were not getting the screen time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were not. Again, they were in it. They were doing great, but dang, they were not getting that screen time. But I think I agree with you, man. I don't really have any pushback.
Best actor in a drama series. Just want to quickly talk about this. Jeff Bridges from The Old Man, Brian Cox from Succession, Kieran Culkin from Succession, Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, Pedro Pascal from The Last of Us, and Jeremy Strong. That's his name. Jeremy Strong from Succession. I'm picking Kieran Culkin. I think it's clearly going to go to one of the Succession actors. As much as I love Pedro in The Last of Us, as much as I think Bob Odenkirk gave a transformative performance in Better Call Saul,
right.
I think Kieran's going to walk away with it. But do you feel otherwise, or do you think, maybe one of the other Succession actors might walk away with this trophy?
I think I'm pretty close to be aligned with you, especially because if the person who has seen Better Call Saul, is not saying Bob Odenkirk, I'm not going with Bob Odenkirk. So, but also, yeah, I feel like as a close second, I guess it has to be Jeremy, in my head as a way it works. But bro, this was Kieran's season of Succession. We talked about it. It was his season. It really was. He was doing the work, bro. Jeremy was great too, but he was kind of doing in some of the other work he had to do or he had already done. Kieran stepped up and was doing other stuff we hadn't seen him do, react to stuff we hadn't seen him react to. So I think I'm with you on the Kieran Culkin train for sure.
Yeah, Jeremy might be the eldest boy, but he's not getting this trophy. I think Kieran just had more moments. You think about the blow up that he had against Alexander Skarsgård.
Exactly.
You think about the quotable line, "I pre-grieved." Like, what the fuck is pre-grieving? Like, what is that?
The funeral by itself.
The funeral, man. Like, what was that? That was incredible, and you just don't see it coming. So election night stuff that he had to manage. I mean, he just had so many big heavy things that he had to carry. So I think he's going to walk away with it. But let's just quickly talk about this last category. Obviously, the biggest award of the night, best drama series. You have Andor from Disney Plus, Better Call Saul from AMC, The Crown from Netflix, House of the Dragon from HBO, The Last of Us from HBO, Succession from HBO, The White Lotus from HBO, and Yellow Jackets from Showtime. I've seen all these series. I think Succession is going to win. I mean, I love everything. I think everything on this list is awesome. As you said, all of these are bangers. This is
bangers.
This is fucking incredible. This is amazing stuff. Like it's great that we live in this time to be able to look at a Star Wars series or a legal sort of comedy drama in Better Call Saul, or a historical piece with The Crown, fantasy, House of the Dragon, post-apocalyptic, Last of Us, just straight, sort of corporate drama with Succession, White Lotus, all of this stuff like is representing so many different types of stories, so many different corners of just like the golden age of television, so to say. But yeah, I think Succession is just like, there's just no way. I don't see any possible realm of reality, as much as I love a lot of these other shows, where Succession just doesn't walk away with the win, because we've all just sort of bowed down and acknowledged like it's one of the greatest television shows ever made, and they just wrapped up their final season. So it's a pretty bygone conclusion, if you ask me.
Hey, Oscar nominations 2023 or Emmy nominations 2023 for best, because they both are going crazy.
Man, that's a good list to compare those two. That would be kind of crazy.
They both are nuts. It's like, which one of these would you rather see? I mean, it really is crazy. But that exit piece is huge. I think Succession's done it. It did successful. It knew when to get the fuck out of there, and it did it with poise. It did it so well. Again, a lot of these we know have season twos. House of Dragon has a season two. Last of Us has a season two. White Lotus, we know we're pretty sure White Lotus is coming back. Yellow Jackets is probably coming back. Andor probably coming back. So I also just don't see a world where it's not Succession. I really don't. And bro, me and my boss talk about Succession. We don't talk about any other of these shows, but when we have our one-on-ones, we talk about Succession and what happened in Succession. So I really feel the energy moving that way. There's 27 nominations, bro. You can't ignore it. It also has the most nominations out here. It is what it is, and I think it's going to take it home.
Certainly. So we'll have to see when the Emmys does eventually air.